Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Having just come out of a year-and-a-half campaign process, I just want to first start by thanking each and every one of these dedicated individuals for stepping up to lead your community, because it's a big deal, and I'm really humbled that they are taking their time to be a part of both this debate and the election process, so thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to start by drawing names out of a hat of the order. I'm going to draw one name, and that person will go first, and then we'll rotate clockwise, and we'll alternate who has to answer first at each of the different questions. So when we start with this, they'll get 5 minutes to open, and then the questions that will be asked today are the questions that you have submitted. They will be screened over here and handed off to me one at a time, so duplicate questions will be combined to make one question. If you submitted a question in advance, we do not have those at this time. We're going to choose to utilize the questions that were submitted today, so please fill out a card and we'll make sure that it gets into the rotation, okay? With that, I guess we'll pick. And the person to go first will be Daryl Supernaw. You'll introduce first.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Joe Supple, for not laughing. My name is Daryl Supernaw, and I'm a lifelong 4th District resident. And if the name's familiar, I ran 3 years ago a total grassroots campaign, and I was fortunate enough to win the primary in April, but I didn't finish the deal in June, so I'm back. I have a long history of being a community advocate, especially in the 4th District. And by profession, I'm an independent business consultant. And I've worked in a number of industries and a lot of retail and restaurant industry. How that relates specifically to EASBA is I sort of took the EASBA formula for shop local, and I took that from the retail to the business-to-business environment. And one of my clients a few years back was NYK Logistics and Mega Carrier. And they did a change in logo one time, and a very difficult thing to print. So I took all that business to Fan Steel Printing down here on the Anaheim corridor at EASBA. And it's kind of nice for a little shop like that to be doing printing for the world's largest shipping company. I also took business from NYK to Machen Sign, which is on Euclid, just between Anaheim and 12. And so here's another little local vendor who was doing a lot of work for a huge worldwide corporation. Also took a lot of restaurant business to both these entities, Fan Steel Printing and Machen Sign. For one of my restaurant clients was actually the #1 sign designated vendor for the entire corporation. To my community work, a lot of folks know about my Atherton Ditch project. That was a $3 million infrastructure project that I worked for 20 years and got completed. And also the 7th Street Bridge project, where we got $1.5 million dollars worth of traffic mitigation fees from Caltrans for that, based on some articles I wrote about that. But I've been asked about what else have you done? That's not enough, evidently, $4.5 million. So I was asked to kind of make a list of the things I've done, like have you ever been a Little League coach and whatever. So if you'll bear with me, I'll try to get through the list quickly. It's from 1980 to 2015. That's 35 years. So it starts with the Adopt a School program, where businesses adopted a school and mentored them. That was starting in 1981. AYSO soccer coach and Little League coach, 1985 to 90. Atherton Corridor Freeway off-ramp project. That's door-to-door petitions when they wanted to make Atherton a thoroughfare across the city. The Atherton Ditch project I mentioned. Wilson High School cross-country and track booster. Cal State Long Beach cross-country and track booster. My son did 4 years at both institutions. Long Beach Strategic Marketing Roundtable. That was in 1998. That's when the city got together to try to market the city. And then Long Beach Strategic Marketing, Inc., that was a think tank, again, from the mayor's office. 4th District Budget Advisory Committee in 2002, and Ken Buck is here. You were on that committee with me under Dennis Carroll. I founded the Atherton Corridor Neighborhood Association in 2007, Helping Hands Award in 2007. Ken got that award with me the same night, and so did Jan Ward. Where's Jan? Way back there hiding. Okay, you can't hide, Jan. Sustainable City Commission, I'm a charter member. I served one term as chair in 2010. I'm now in my second term as chair. Cal State Long Beach Draft Environmental Report on Parking Structures, that's in 08. There's a Schroeder Hall, Long Beach Police, East Division Police Substation. Joe Selp was right here. He and I worked for 7 years on that. I stopped counting at 3,000 emails, but we had exchanged that many emails on that project. LBB report, Bill Pearl's here. He was nice enough to let me publish a number of articles in his publication, and the community did a lot with that. 2009, the semi-annual homeless count. I mentioned the 7th Street Bridge project. CSULB preferential parking districts, went door-to-door with petitions there. Westka cleanups with Jan Ward again, several of those. Hi, Jan. Candidate for City Council in 2011 and 2012. And let's see what we have. We're up to number 22. East Artcraft Manor Neighborhood Association, the parking impacts of Buffum School. And Peter Griffith is here from that organization. Thank you, Peter, for attending today. Cool California Challenge. I was the #1 household in energy efficiency for the city of Long Beach. That's out of 387 households. Anyone want to guess who was number 2? He's in the room today. Gary DeLong, right here. Okay. Mr. Environment, Gary DeLong. And candidate for City Council 2015. And I think I'm probably out of time, but thank you for your indulgence.
Since it's not actually round, I'm going to pick the second candidate. Herlinda Chico.
Go ahead. Hello. Thank you all for being here, taking the time today to come and learn a little bit about the candidates here. I really appreciate the fact that you're going to take your time to do that. And thank you, EASBA, for putting on the candidates forum. And thank you, Councilmember Mungo, for participating and taking the time to do this. So I'm Herlinda Chico, and I love Long Beach. I moved here 15 years ago, and like many people who move to Long Beach, I instantly fell in love with Long Beach. I knew immediately that this is where I wanted to purchase my first home, where I wanted to plant my roots, and where I wanted to become an active member of the community, and I've done that. Some of the community groups that I've been involved in vary across different sorts of issues. I've been very active in promoting the businesses down the Anaheim corridor and have established great relationships with many of our business partners. I've worked a lot in the animal advocacy and rescue groups and supported them. I have partnered and supported a nonprofit that fosters good relationships and communication between law enforcement and the community, which is important. It decreases, or in an effort to decrease acts of violence. And one particular issue that is very close to my heart is helping kids who are aged out of the foster care system into transitional housing to find programs and services to help keep them on the right path, and particularly young women. So I think my community involvement stems from my years of service as a public servant. I've worked for 5 different cities, including the city of Long Beach. So I have a great understanding of the workings of city government. I also know that resources in city government are stretched really thin, and that's why it's important that we have the partnerships with our community organizations so that we can partner and fill some of those voids. I've also worked for one of the largest business improvement districts in downtown Los Angeles. We managed 3 bids, the toy district, the industrial district, which was in the heart of Skid Row. So talk about some challenging issues that we had to deal with a very diverse group of stakeholders. And we brought them all to the table to resolve many of those issues. We also helped establish the Arts District, and the Arts District is flourishing. It is now a tourist destination, and I'm very proud of the direction that they've gone in. So I think my community involvement and my background in public service has allowed me to identify areas that I really want to focus in. Is that my timer? No, you're good. So I think it has allowed me to identify areas that I really want to focus in here in the 4th District. Public safety is a priority. I think that it is a top priority for city government to provide a safe environment for those that live in the area, work in the area, and visit the area. And I'm committed to making sure that the entire 4th District is safe. Also, economic development. With my background, I understand how important it is to support business improvement districts and also establish new districts, bringing in the business community, also looking at ways to identify areas in the district where we can really expand and develop. And I think the west side of the 4th District is ripe for revitalization, and I'm eager to explore those opportunities. And then protecting the environment. It's critical that we have a strong voice on the City Council that will protect the environment, our air quality, wetlands, beaches, waterways, and that's something that I'm committed to. So I appreciate the time that you've taken to listen to us. I look forward to hearing your questions and engaging in conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon now. My name is Richard Lindeman. I'm probably the dark horse candidate of this group. But let me start with the question. Best Oscar host, Neil Patrick Harris, Billy Crystal, Bob Hope. You may be wondering, you probably think there's nothing to do with my candidacy.
A little bit, please.
I'm sorry?
Speak up a little bit.
Okay. I'll put the microphone a little closer. You probably think this has nothing to do with my candidacy, and my answer to you is you're right. The question has nothing to do with the election, but everything to do with how I'm running my campaign. My running has everything to do with you. The folks of the district and the businesses around. What I want to know is, what do you think is important? What do you think are our problems? What do you think are our strengths? And what do you want your councilman to do for you? This is really why I'm running. I'm running a self-funded campaign. I understand that I understand who I want to represent, not who I have been paid to represent. I'm not taking any donations for my campaign because I don't work for unions or PACs or any other groups. I know who I work for. I work for you, and that's why I'm out in the community, knocking on doors and taking my candidacy to you. Okay, I have lived in Long Beach for 53 years. Of which my first 18 were in the 5th District on the east side, and the last 35 have been here on the west side of the 4th District. Therefore, I think I have kind of a unique view of what we're doing here in the district and how both sides really work, because I've experienced both ends of it. I've talked to the police and fire groups about restoring their force to pre-2008 levels in order to better protect all of us. But since I'm not accepting their donations, I'm not their bought and paid for candidate. Because I want to be able to make the best decisions for the people I represent, not the unions that they represent necessarily. I want to make it clear that I am generally a union backer. Both my parents were union people. My dad was in General Motors in the UAW, and my mom worked for Zodi's. Anybody remember Zodi's? A few? Okay. So I'll be walking the district so far, I've found that protection is a recurring issue with people, both business and individuals. And so, that's why I think it's really important, and I think it's really important to have better patrol, better protection for both fire and fire and police. I can't get it any closer. Do you guys think we need more patrols? because I do. Living in the west side, it's the more dangerous probably area of the city. We have a lot more violent crime, more murders, more assaults, and things like that. So, in talking to our area, that's an important issue. I think we all agree that the noise problem in the city, both from planes and traffic, is another issue. As far as the airport and things, we have the airport noise ordinance that we really need to make sure we protect. And I know there's issues going forward on possible inclusion of more flights that JetBlue would like, and so we need to see what we need to do to make sure we keep our noise ordinance in effect, and if we can possibly, abide by what they want, that would be good for them, good for us, good for the city, good for taxes. So it just has to be what everybody decides on. I don't live in the airport flight path. As far as the main flight path, but I do live in the helicopter flight path that goes over. And being in the west side, we also get the circling around our area and things like that. So it's both a boon and a bust for people. So you can see that we really need to have both. We need to have a vibrant airport and also keep the issues at bay. We don't want to cause any more litigation than already has come.
And I think that's your time, sir.
Okay.
There'll be many more opportunities.
Thank you.
We're going to start with her, Linda, then go to Richard, and end with Daryl this time. Do you support increasing the utility users tax and/or sales tax in Long Beach? And these questions, they have 1 minute to answer. Please don't feel obligated to use the whole minute. You'll get through more questions.
We need to implement that at the city council meetings.
Yes.
I am not in favor of raising taxes. Unfortunately, there are some tough conversations that we're going to have. I've heard that the UUT has been brought up. I work in a city where a half-cent sales tax passed by the voters, but that's not where our first lead should be. We really need to identify where we can be more efficient in city government, look at making sure that we stretch the dollar as much as we can. But of course, we're going to have those conversations. It's not something that I'm in favor for. It is a last resort. So I'll be looking at hopefully streamlining some of the inefficiencies that we have.
So that goes to Richard.
Basically, I'm a fiscal conservative, a social liberal, and an eco-friendly type person. And so I think, as Linda said, we also need to look at the fiscal responsibility that the city has to make sure that our budgeting is correct. If we can do this without a tax hike, then I would say, that's how we should do it. But we need to really take a good close look at what's allowed in the budget and what we have to work with. So basically, I'm against tax hikes. I don't think that's wonderful for the people involved. I know every time we have a tax hike, it's just a nickel dime here, a nickel dime there, and a nickel dime there, but it all adds up, and in the end, it's big bucks. So I'm basically against it, unless they show me otherwise.
Do you support increasing the utility users tax and/or sales tax in Long Beach?
The answer is a definitive no. And that's not just my opinion. I hope to represent the voters. And the voters of Long Beach, 70% of them did not want a utility users tax to be at 10%. The utility users tax and sales tax, both by definition, are regressive taxes. They affect the poor far more than any other segment of society. But I know who is for them, and that's the public sector unions. And before you think of me as being putting me in a certain category. My father was a Long Beach firefighter, is a proud member of the union. My wife has a PERS pension. My mom has half my dad's PERS pension as a surviving spouse. She has her own PERS pension. I'm not against private sector unions. It's just that this is not the way to resolve the retirement issues.
First of all, I'm going to give a definition. This is a two-part question, so we'll see how we handle this one. Measure N. Measure N was a measure supported by the voters, which raised the wages of hotel workers to $13 an hour, and annually they are increasing by, I believe, 2% a year. The question listed, I believe, is slightly different, but I believe that to be the fact of what Measure N was, so I want to have that as the baseline of what the fact of Measure N was. Do you support Measure N? And if so, would you support a similar wage increase for restaurant workers? And this time we start with Richard.
Measure N, actually when it was being passed, I voted against it. So I'm not in favor of across-the-board pay raises, because eventually what seems to be happening now is that you give one group, a specific group, a pay raise, and then the next group wants it, and the next group wants it, and the next group wants it, and now all of a sudden you've elevated everybody's pay, and so you're kind of back to the same basis as you were in the first place. So when everybody goes up, everything else costs more, and it just becomes a never-ending cycle. So I'm against it.
You know, for the sake of time, I'm just going to say I'm against it. I have a great quote today that I just read. I read Nation's Restaurant News every morning. So just bear with me 1 second. I love this answer. This is not a restaurant issue for the restaurant industry to solve. It's too big. It's not a hotel issue for the lodging industry to solve. The same goes for convenience stores, grocery stores, big box retailers. The we has to be all of us, the entry-level employment sector, working as one entity to redefine the role we collectively play in putting Americans to work and creating real opportunities for advancements to middle class and beyond. It's not about a single industry. Thank you.
So if we're going to listen to the voters, more than 60% of the voters passed Measure N. So that's something to take into consideration, that this is a conversation that people are having about their neighbors living in poverty. Having said that, I think that we need to work with our business community, with our restaurants, to lessen the impact that they may experience. My mother was a small business owner, and anytime I make decisions regarding the impacts on small businesses, I always keep that in mind. So I think that bringing everybody to the table, getting input from everybody, we can find a smart way to come to a solution to this proposal.
Do you support it?
Yes, I do support measures similar to that, but again, I don't believe in doing this overnight. This has to be something that's a gradual process.
Question number 3, we'll be starting with Daryl. Talk about the importance of the arts in Long Beach as a way to improve business and economic development.
Well, we can start back at Long Beach City College, 1970. I was an art major and graduated with an AA degree in art. So the arts are near and dear to me. In terms of economic development, I think it's a huge, huge piece of the puzzle. And I would like to do everything in my power to promote the arts. And I usually talk about my track record and whatnot and what I've done in the past. And I've always supported them. But some of the kind of organic pieces, if anyone saw the Flying Morrison display down across from Berlin Coffee Shop, that's my neighbor and good friend, Jim Koch, who took that picture in 1967 of Jim Morrison. And we promoted that big time on LB Report. And that's the type of thing, kind of organic pieces like that, where it's not going to take a great deal of funding. And that's the way I'd like to support it.
So one of the great things about the 4th District that sometimes I think is overlooked is the rich diversity here in our district. And the 4th District goes so far west that we encompass part of Cambodia Town. And they have some of the organizations there put on a film festival, put on a cultural festival, as well as a parade. And so we have that right here in the 4th District. We also have fantastic people that have moved into the district that are creative and really doing great things in the community. This will be the 2nd year for Idea Fest, where we bring people together at Orizaba Park and talk about ideas to move the city forward. It's a wonderful community building experience. So these are the type of organic things that are already taking place in the 4th District that I want to continue to support and promote.
In the 4th District, we also have, other than the things that have been listed here, we have the Musical Theater West that's over at the university, there at the Carpenter Center. And my wife and I have been standing members of that for, I don't know, probably about 10 years, 12 years. And they put on wonderful performances, and they draw people from all over the city and all over neighboring cities, and it's a wonderful experience. There's so many, as Herlinda said, there's so many things that we have going for us, not only in the district but in the city, that are such worthwhile projects, and we need to support all of them. We go down to the music center downtown, or the theater down there, and enjoy that. And there are just so many places you can go. The Playhouse here puts on wonderful, very interesting plays usually that I've enjoyed. So we just need to support the arts and get things moving. As you said, the Cambodia town has all of their inside programs and things, so we need to support those too. I've been present at some of those functions also, so it's a great town. I love Long Beach.
We're going to have another 2-part question, and many of you have been to council to hear about this item recently in our 5.5-hour study session, aka the joke about the 3 minutes. Are you currently involved in any way with the medical marijuana issue, and would you be supportive of collectives in Long Beach? And this one starts with Herlinda.
No, I am not involved in the medical marijuana industry. I'm learning about it. I have friends that are providing me with information on both sides, why it's good, why it's bad, or why they don't want to see it in Long Beach. My assessment of this is that it will likely be on the 2016 ballot, and the state of California is going to pass it. So I think the smart thing for us to do is be proactive and not reactive, and really work with law enforcement and city staff in coming up with very, very tough regulations so that we have a stronghold in this business that will likely come into our community.
I am also not any way connected with the marijuana industry or anything like that. In fact, for me personally, I've never tried it. When I smell it, it kind of makes me a bit nauseous, but that's just me. The other side of that is, do I think we should support it? I really do. I think we need to support it, control it, tax it, and make sure that the people who need it or want it can get it in our areas. I know that the problem with it that I've heard over and over is that nobody really wants it in their area, and that's where we probably need to work most on getting space available. I know in the 5.5-hour meeting, which I didn't stay for all of it, by the way. There was a lot of talk about the zones that they have, are making up to be available, and that to me is critical, as where they're going to be put and where they're not going to be. It's okay.
Well, I thought Richard did great for a newcomer, didn't he, guys? Right there is how I feel. No, I'm for compassionate use. As someone who suffered from kidney stone pain, my heart goes out to anyone who needs something for pain relief. But I think that the problem is in how we work this out at council. What I've seen lately, it seems like we're making some of the same mistakes we did before with this, and it's just so complex an issue that I'm not sure if we have to go back to the drawing board again. But the simple answer to your question is I'm for compassionate use.
Next question is paying homage to our new assembly member who brought representation today. Our former council member, Patrick O'Donnell, scheduled regular district community meetings at the library. Will you be doing the same? How will you communicate with your constituents? And this one starts with Richard.
Well, I personally found Councilman O'Donnell's meetings very interesting. They were always informative about what's going on in the city, and he had different debates of people coming in when there were elections. The last city election for the mayor, for example, they had both of the candidates there for that, and that was very informative. And so I would want to continue that and set up, possibly rotating meetings, possibly between where it was in the library, the Los Altos Library, and over to Orizaba Park. So both sides of the district get a little more representation, and you can get more people involved, and hopefully you can get some of the people from the west to the east and vice versa from the east to the west. So, the other thing that he did was using the his 4th District website and using that for interacting with businesses and things, and noting, who's having grand openings, who's having anniversaries, little histories about some of the businesses. And I would also continue that to make sure that we have that available and everybody knows what's going on.
You're referring to the Chat with Pat meetings, and I attended many over the years, and in fact I presented at several over the years. Not that they wanted me, but I think I was a last-minute fill-in when someone didn't show. It's how it worked out. We actually did our neighborhood presentations at Chat with Pat meetings, the Golden Ditch Awards. We have a couple of recipients in the audience today. But the only complaint I heard over the years was the timing. 4:30 in the afternoon was kind of tough for working people to get to, and there was the location, Los Altos. So I think those issues can be resolved. And also, what I would do is I would go to possibly video and webcasting these, so you have a play on demand for seeing it. And then if that is successful, we can actually go to a live format where folks in the audience could submit questions electronically, and just more convenient for people across the district.
Well, both of those ideas are things that I've been discussing for a while, that as a working person myself, it was difficult for me to get to the Chat with Pat forums. I made quite a few, but it was difficult. I'd like to maintain those, and talking to neighbors in the east side of the neighborhood, they really do like the 4:30 time slot at Los Altos Library, so I'd like to keep that. But I'd also like to expand that and possibly provide a community meeting on a Saturday morning at 9:30 at our new beautiful community center at Orizaba Park, where working families can attend. I too have, it's been commented that the campaign that I'm running uses a lot of technology, and I think that that's a really good balance. That's how I would like to continue to represent, and that's with face-to-face community forums, but also utilizing technology with website and video.
How many of you knew that February is Spay and Neuter Awareness Month?
Thank you for bringing that forward.
Oh, well, we have a question about spay and neuter awareness. How would you vote on the mandatory spay and neuter issue coming to the council's attention on March 3rd? It's also important to note that there are some exceptions to the word mandatory that are in the upcoming bill, but I'm sure you're all pretty aware of that. And this starts with Daryl.
Well, here again, the devil's in the details, but I would advocate for this. We've had a lot of initiatives regarding animal control and no-kill policies and whatnot over the years. We also had a dog park a few years back that was going to go in the 4th District, and I met with all the stakeholders there. So I think it's just one of these many issues that has to be vetted. We have to get the exact right formula, but in general, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor of mandatory spay-neuter. I have pleaded and paid out of my pocket for people to get their pets spayed and neutered. And a lot of times it just comes down to education. I support Fix Long Beach. They're doing great work with outreach in the community, with education, providing vouchers so that low-income families can spay and neuter their pets and get vaccinated. This, in the long term, would be cost-effective for the city. The resources that are spent in our animal care services, in tracking these stray animals, housing these stray animals, and many times euthanizing these stray animals is very costly. And this is a very good solution, and I'm supportive.
Well, I'm not sure I can say much that hasn't been said. I too support the provisions to do that. Like Darrell said, I think it needs to be vetted properly, which sometimes it seems the city doesn't quite follow through the whole way, so we need to make sure we're doing that to not cause some other problems along the way as a result of an erroneous vetting. So, but in general, I support it.
This one's a pretty firm and short question, and we're going to start with Herlinda. Are you for or against international flights at Long Beach Airport?
Well, I think the proposal was just made public yesterday. So I've been told that it's not going to affect the noise ordinance, and I'm committed to protecting that. I'm also committed to protecting the number of flights in and out of the airport. But I think that we have to be very cautious when we move forward, just because we want to make sure that in allowing international flights, that we're not opening ourselves up to litigation, which we've seen happen in the past. So I'm open to talking about it and hearing all sides and perspectives, but I think that we really need to be cautious in moving forward. So I support the concept, but I want to make sure that there aren't any significant impacts on the health and safety of our residents, because that will always take precedence.
Well, I would have to say I agree with that also. On the one side, I do support the international flights. To me, whether it's a domestic flight or an international flight, it doesn't really make that much difference, but we do have to vet it very completely so as not to interfere with the noise ordinance that are in place, because that's very important to our livelihood in the city. But it needs to be something that needs to be looked at and, again, vetted very, very carefully, that we don't make any mistakes and open up ourselves to different kinds of problems.
Well, first, I'd like to say I have a long history in the community of supporting the noise ordinance. My wife, Cheryl, was on the original hush group that got the noise ordinance instituted in the first place. We're very fortunate to have two incredible experts in city staff, and that is Assistant City Attorney Mike Mays and our City Prosecutor Doug Halbert. And I think we really have to defer to their judgment in this case. It doesn't really matter the issue. For instance, the donning and doffing lawsuit, I wanted to see that thing go to court. I thought we would win in court on that one. But you know what? Our city attorney, former city attorney at the time, said, no, this has to be settled. That's the most prudent way to handle this. And I would just like to defer to our experts. And what they're saying, what I'm hearing now is that there are some issues, there are some inherent threats with bringing the international flights forward. So again, this needs to be vetted, and thank goodness we have the experts right at City Hall.
Okay, another item that's before council these days. There's a lot of talk at the city council regarding rent control versus REAP versus other apartment monitoring types of programs. So this question, it starts with Richard, will be, how do you feel about rent control? And specifically, would you be supportive of any of the types of policies I'm sure you've heard of, or what is your ideal policy that would come to either protect rent control or protect landlords?
Okay, that cord is just a problem. As far as rent control goes, some of the statistics that I've seen have been that rent control generally in areas where it becomes a large area, it generally creates problems in the areas. It reduces the money available for the landlords to take care of their properties, and so as they're looking at this, we need to make sure if we're doing something regarding rent control, that we need to make sure that there's some sort of possibly a increase involved as far as an annual increase and things like that. In general, I'm not in favor of rent control, and what I've read recently, I think that's the way to go. We need to have some low-income housing and things, but putting rent control on it, I don't think is the way to go.
I'm in total agreement with Richard, and I would just add, I think he was saying the unintended consequences are the issues here, so I would not be in favor of rent control.
I don't support rent control either. I think that it's detrimental to landlords, to property owners. However, I do think that it's important that we hold property owners accountable for providing safe living quarters. That's important. I know that Housing Long Beach has identified areas in each district where living conditions are deplorable, and they're taking community leaders and elected officials into these houses, and those are the property owners that we have to hold accountable and work with so that our residents aren't living in these types of conditions. I think it's also important that we do look at options for affordable housing. We have people that are good, hardworking people that have families, and unfortunately are still living under the poverty line, and they're working full-time jobs. And I think that it's important that we address these issues and find ways that we can help everybody.
Thank you all for your questions. We've tried to merge as many of them as we could to get as many questions answered. This will be our last question, and then each candidate will have 3 minutes to close. And this is a pretty broad question that'll hopefully address a couple of additional questions that were out there. And this one will start with Daryl. And the question is, in such a diverse district, how do you plan to address issues that span from poverty, affordable housing, public safety, etc.?
For those of you who don't know, I'm a lifelong 4th District resident. I grew up in the Stearns Park neighborhood, East Artcraft Manor. And for the last 35 years, I lived just east of Los Altos, so I'm definitely an east side guy. What you may not know is all my advocacy for the west side of the district over the years. You can go back on the record. I believe the date was April 20th, 2010, when we were getting funding for the East Division substation. And I spoke at council. I don't know if the video is still online, but you can go back and look at the minutes on placing the substation on the Anaheim corridor. And I also read into the record what constituted a substation, because I thought the East Division was getting the short end of the stick. It's a community center, it's a lot of things, and it really could have benefited that area of the city. And I went on record that night with that position. And that's my feeling, is that we need to put resources into where the challenges are. Most folks don't know that in 2013, Beat 11, which is between Redondo and Cherry, led the district in homicides, and thank goodness we've off that track, but I put a lot of energy into this over the years. Thank you.
So I think it's priority that we engage all members of our community, and fortunately I've been doing that. I've worked with members in the Cambodian community. I think it's important that we engage our community. We bring resources in. It's unfortunate that we're going to build this beautiful community center at Orizaba Park, but we can't fund staff to have it open. So we have kids playing at the park, but they can't use the bathrooms because they're inside the community center. Those are things that need to be addressed. As far as public safety and getting the community engaged, the community wants to establish a business improvement district, and so working with the mayor's office, in fact, I think they've already identified a consultant to work with. They're generating the plans. This is ripe for revitalization. It really is. The people that are coming into the district want to.
I agree with Orlinda that we need to have a lot of outreach in the district to cover all of the various groups, because we're so diverse from the east side to the west side and into going into actually the 6th district also, which has a the link with the Cambodian community. And so it's just important to bring everybody aboard. And I've been talking to people in different parts of the district in my campaign, just to get a feel for all of them. Obviously, I can't walk the entire district and knock on every door, but I'm kind of picking and choosing where I can go to just get a real feel of what's going on. And I think involving everybody that we can to work with the issues, to tell us what the issues are, and then work on them is what we really need to accomplish. And that's my whole goal on the for this election.
So now we will wrap up. Each candidate will get 3 minutes to give closing remarks, and then we'll say a few words, and I'm sure the candidates will stay afterward to talk with each of you individually. So now we'll be starting with Herlinda.
Again, for the opportunity to exchange and have these our ideas and this dialogue with the community. I think that it's important that we select someone who is a good reflection of the entire community. I grew up in a working middle-class home. My parents are still married after 40 plus years, a very traditional family values home. I'm committed to working in the community. I did not grow up here, but that doesn't mean that I don't love Long Beach. I really do, and I've invested my time, my energy, and my love. One of the things that I've noticed when talking to people, particularly on the west side and the Cambodian community, I've spoken to many of the leaders, and they've thanked me for being the one person who has reached out to them and talked to them about the issues. In fact, I was just meeting with some Cambodian leaders yesterday about their film festival coming up. I also want to convey and underscore my willingness to hear everybody. I am not a rubber stamp for anybody, but my door is always open. I'm always willing to listen to ideas and listen to the different perspectives of issues. It's interesting that I've heard a little bit of union bashing up here, but all three of us went in for those endorsements, seeking their support and their endorsements. So I think that's important to note because I also went into the chamber and sought the chamber's endorsement. I want to bring everybody to the table. That's the only way that we're going to find resolution. That's why I've been able to maintain so many relationships over the 15 years that I've been working in the community. I plan to provide all the resources, the networks, the experience that I have, and be a strong and critical voice for the residents of the 4th District. Did I hear the little chirp?
40 seconds.
Oh, I do. Okay. I thought I heard the chirp. I'm sorry. So with my experience working for 5 different cities, I think that that's a strong understanding. I bring that strong understanding of the way city governments work. I have the support of the majority of the city council, and I think that that's important because when we do want to push policy forward, you need to be able to consensus build. And that's what I've done throughout the community, throughout the 4th District, and throughout Long Beach over these past 15 years, and I'd be honored to represent the 4th District.
Well, as I said as I started, I am by far the dark horse of this group. But my goal really is to represent the district as best as possible and to represent the people of the district. As I said, I'm doing a self-funded campaign. I'm not taking any donations from anyone, whether it's, you want to give me $20, not going to happen. But the idea is to go to get the consensus of the community, obviously. My immediate chore is to get the people out to vote. The west side of the district has a much lower voting turnout than the east side does, and so it's my duty, I feel, to kind of address that and get more people involved in the campaign. Whether they vote for me or not, I would like them to, obviously, but the idea is to get them out and vote. And after that, then we need to address their issues, their problems, what they feel needs to be done in the city. And that's my entire goal, is to work for the people, not for, I was not union bashing, as I said. My family we're both union members for my mom and dad. And but that doesn't mean I would just fall kind of lockstep in line with whatever they wanted. I feel I need to have a individual voice, and I would be that, I think, in the city council. And so that's really my goal. And I welcome your support, and I am thankful that you folks are here, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here. Bless you. And I can hardly wait till the election. This is going to be interesting. As I said, as I started, I am by far the dark horse of this group. But my goal really is to represent the district as best as possible, and to represent the people of the district. As I said, I'm doing a self-funded campaign. I'm not taking any donations from anyone, whether it's you want to give me $20, not going to happen. But the idea is to go to get the consensus of the community, obviously. My immediate chore is to get the people out to vote. The west side of the district has a much lower voting turnout than the east side does, and so it's my duty, I feel, to kind of address that and get more people involved in the campaign. Whether they vote for me or not, I would like them to, obviously, but the idea is to get them out and vote. And after that, then we need to address their issues, their problems, what they feel needs to be done in the city. And that's my entire goal, is to work for the people, not for, I was not union bashing, as I said. My family we're both union members for my mom and dad. And but that doesn't mean I would just fall kind of lockstep in line with whatever they wanted. I feel I need to have a individual voice, and I would be that, I think, in the city council. And so that's really my goal. And I welcome your support, and I am thankful that you folks are here, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here. Bless you. And I can hardly wait till the election. This is going to be interesting.
Well, first, thank you to EASBA for hosting the event, and thank you to all you attendees for your civic engagement. This is a great turnout, and it really gives me a lot of faith in the upcoming election that we'll have a good representation. I have to interrupt my closing remarks, too, to echo what Richard said. I didn't hear any union bashing here. I think there's a huge difference. I don't think anyone's been more supportive of police and fire over the years than myself. But there's a difference between how we fund them, and I think raising taxes is not the solution right now. I have a very strong business background, and I have presented in formal presentations on 3 occasions to the city on new ideas for revenue streams. That's what we really have to do. It's all about the economy moving forward. And if you support the unions, then you'll want to support us having a more robust economy in this city. Corporate sponsorships, those types of things where you get something going and the synergies just build is the direction I'd like to go. And that's the track record I have in presentations to the city. I think I'd like to close with this, and I see the press telegrams, Eric Bradley, in the back, and I've been through this process once before, and Eric, you remember, I think your headline the next day was "Sparks Fly at the Candidate Forum," so you can't use that one again. And I think I'll just close my remarks on that. I've always worked very hard for the community. You know, one time, Jan Ward, are you still back there, Jan? I can't see you, but okay, she's ducked out. We were talking about my involvement in WESCA and whatnot, and I said, well, I've been to all the events. She said, well, I really don't remember you being there. I said, well, I'm always taking pictures or a video for the council office. So about a week later, I got all my photos together and laid them out, and I said, look, Jan, there's you at the Orizaba Park groundbreaking. There you are up in a cherry picker bucket hanging in a banner for EASBA. There you are at another groundbreaking. Here you are at the 100th West Clean. And I laid my, oh my gosh, it looks like I'm stalking Jan Ward. So I've been very, very involved in the community for many years. That's what I plan to continue doing as your council member, and it can only get bigger and better. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. The vote by mails will be out in just a few weeks. 8 weeks from today is Election Day. Good luck to all of you. Thank you to EASBA and your leadership for both hosting and filming this. It will be online shortly. And thank you for inviting me. It was really an honor. Thank you to the media for enhancing the candidates' reach into the community, and thank you to the guests who made this forum a priority today for lunch. And most importantly, thank you to everyone who submitted a question. We really appreciate it. The forum is nothing without the questions from each and every one of you and what you care about in the community. Your 4th District representation is here on behalf of constituent issues, and all of us on the City Council represent you in the 4th District. We may be elected by districts, but we represent each and every one of you. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.